Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for coming to our press conference. Before we start, I would like to introduce the gentleman on my right, Mr. Karygiannis, and he is the MP for Agincourt, and he is old friend and good friend from the Chinese community because he been MP in Agincourt for a long time. How many years?
20. Tiananmen Square was the start.
20 years. A long time friend, a good friend of the Chinese community, and he's very concerned about what's happening about the C50, and because each year he held a lot of his constituents in his writing, most of the Asia instead, help them, to settle some immigration cases, and because help them, particularly in the matters of family reunion, and anything that he think that he will help in his jurisdiction. So today we are so honored to have Jim coming because there's a new bill maybe are going to pass C50, and there's a lot of issue that concern us, and particularly to concern Jim. So today he will speak on this issue, and after his speech, and I will say some word about my personal stand on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony, and thank you, members of, ladies and gentlemen of the press, for coming here today. I am a member of the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. I've worked on immigration for a long time. There are times that the Advance Club was holding meetings, and year after year I was there with Tony. So I've asked Tony to work with my office to convene this meeting because C50 is of great interest, not only to me, but a lot of my constituents. A few weeks ago, the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration introduced Bill C50 in order to deal with the backlog which the department has. For years, the Department of Citizenship and Immigration has been struggling to keep up with the number of applications submitted from people who want to come to Canada. It would be worthwhile to take a historical look at this department over the last 2 decades. It always had its difficulties. In the past 2 years, however, it has become totally dysfunctional. Conservative minister after conservative minister has tried to solve the problems they're facing, yet they're finding themselves in more trouble. I'm not going to say that under the Liberals the department was perfect. It had its challenges. However, in the last 2 years, the department has become a challenge. The mockery of this department under the Conservatives continues even today. A few months ago, I asked under the access to information about the real figures in inventories and waiting times since the Conservatives took power. The real nightmare was then exposed. The Conservative government had assured parliamentarians that processing times would decrease. Instead of seeing an overall decrease in processing times, what I discovered when I got those figures was an overall increase. For the first year, under the Conservatives, in 2006, the processing timelines increased by 20.79%. This is all over the world. For 2007, the processing times again increased an overall of 7.6% all over the world, while the number of immigrants coming to Canada dropped. In 2005, it was 262,236 people. In 2007, it was 236,689 people. A difference of 25,547 people. A decrease of almost 10%. The minister yesterday, 2 days ago, stated in the House, and she said, Mr. Speaker, we're working for families. We have already improved processing times for family reunification by up to 40%. Mr. Speaker, we want to get families reunited. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just wondering, who is she trying to kid? Let us look at the horror stories. For figures in the department's website in 2007, I concluded increase in processing timelines in the following categories and posts. Cairo, 34% increase. Beijing, for skilled workers, an increase of 25.53%. Sydney, Australia, an increase of 64.7%. Paris, 33%. Port of Spain, 77%. Port of Prince, 46%. Port spouses and partners, Pretoria, increase of 85%, Kuala Lumpur, 300%, New Delhi, 100%, Buenos Aires, 22%, Caracas, 22%, San Diego, 28%, dependent children, Cairo, an increase of 71%, Pretoria, 77%, Beijing, this is for your children if you are sponsoring them from China, children, 67% increase. That is astounding. That is never heard before, and that should not be allowed. New Delhi, 33%. Kiev, 116%. Parents and grandparents. Berlin, up 65%. Buenos Aires, up 142%. Caracas, up 44%. Guatemala, up 52%. Port-au-Prince, up 96.5%. But let's specifically look for China and Hong Kong. Those are the figures that I invited with you to go over today. In Beijing, skilled workers for 2006, the processing times increased by 36%, while the cases, this is the people applying, dropped by 21.7%. Spouses and partners, processing percent increased by 25%, while the cases dropped by 4.02%. Dependent children, processing times in 2006 increased by 33.33%, while the cases decreased by 4.07%. Parents and grandparents, processing times increased by 54%, while cases dropped by 29%. The total number of processed cases for 2006 and processing times for Beijing, they went up by 40.71%, while the cases that people were applying dropped by 48%. People just gave up and said, this is not the destination we want to go. The intake of applications dropped by 48%. Hong Kong, skilled workers processing times increased by 25.45%. Cases dropped by almost 6%. Spouses and partners processing times 46%, while cases decreased by 33%. Dependent children up 45%. Cases dropped by 35%. Parents and grandparents up by 28%. Cases dropped by 55%. People just said it takes such a long time, forget it. The total number of processed cases and processing times in Hong Kong increased overall by 10%, while the cases dropped by 28.8%. Now, more specifically, for this year in 2007, skilled worker applications in Beijing decreased by 25%, processing timelines increased by 25%, dependent children increased by 66%, processing overall increased by 19.64%, and I will give you those figures. Finally, the minister had a revelation, and holding true to her Conservative Reform Alliance Party, she brought us a nightmare, Bill C-50. Wanting to have a quick passage of the legislation, she placed it in the budget and called it a motion of confidence. These amendments, as proposed in this piece of legislation, C-50, essentially give the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration to decide which applications to process, which to hold, and which to return back without even processing. Particular immigration categories which would be negatively affected are the family class, permanent resident status, that are made on humanitarian and compassionate grounds. That's the H&C grounds. The bill should be debated specifically in the Standing Committee of Citizenship and Immigration and not at the Committee of Finance, as the Conservatives want. Both the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration and the Minister responsible for Canadian Border Security Agency, this is Mr. Stockwell Day, are invited to give evidence, and they should come. Also community groups, stakeholders, lawyers, immigration practitioners, and others should have the opportunity to testify and give evidence whether they are in favor and or against this piece of legislation. The Parliamentary Secretary on Monday feeling very embarrassed because they had absolutely no motion for this bill to the Committee of Citizenship and Immigration. He brought legislation, he brought a motion that this bill should also be heard at the Citizenship and Immigration. However, his motion, he placed the timeline, and he said this motion should be finalized by May the 7th. Ladies and gentlemen, the Standing Committee of Citizenship and Immigration sits 2 times a week. Until next week, we are holding hearings on Iraqi refugees, consultants, and undocumented workers. And we have agreed that we will not discuss anything else but that. And for him to say we will discuss this piece of legislation legislation when we go back on April the 28th. That's 2 weeks. 4 hearings. 2 hours per hearing, 8 hours. That does not do justice to this legislation. This will not allow practitioners, lawyers, people like the advance group to come to the committee and testify, to come to the committee and say, I'm in favor, I'm against. This morning when we had hearings downtown and I stormed out of there because they would not allow me to ask questions, I asked the immigration lawyers, have you been consulted on this piece of legislation? The answer was no. Here is the minister bringing a bill forward and not discussing it with the people that it affects, the lawyers. What is really shameful, however, I do want to have a quote that Prime Minister Stephen Harper made a few years ago, and he said, you have to remember that west of Winnipeg, the ridings, the Liberals horde, are dominated by people who are either recent Asian immigrants. This is us. I got roots in Asia Minor. This is us. Or recent migrants from Eastern Canada. People who live in ghettos and who are not integrated into Western Canadian society. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not live in a ghetto. I live in one of the best ridings in the world. I happen to represent this riding from 1988. It's the best riding, it's the most ethnically diverse riding, and for the Prime Minister to call my riding a ghetto is real shameful. Canadian people simply do not trust the Conservatives to deliver on immigration. And frankly speaking, neither do I. Thank you. I'm shut out. The minister yesterday said, and I feel very passionate about this, and I'm sorry if I cut you off. I should have had better manners to allow you. The minister yesterday said, it's a privilege, and this should be addressed. It's a right for you to be able to come to the border and put your application to. It's not a right for the minister to take the applications that are going forth and say, well, I don't like these people, they come from this country, and throw them completely out. That is what is not right. It's a privilege for you to wanting to come to Canada. It's a privilege for you to apply to come to Canada, and it's not right for the minister to take the applications every year and say, I don't need them, I'm going to trash them. You're paying money to put your application in. The minister has absolutely not the right to decide who and when.
So what's the topic of the public hearing?
The public hearings are on CSIC, Canadian Society of Immigration Consultants, Iraqi refugees, as well as undocumented workers. We do have in Canada a lot of people that are undocumented. All these motions that we're discussing today, 2 of them were something that I brought in about the undocumented workers and about the immigration, the refugees from Iraq. And one of the things that I'm finding in my area is that the undocumented workers, we do have a lot of them. These people have come to Canada, applied for refugee, failed marriages, and we have absolutely no means of asking these people that have been here for 5 or 6 years, there is a means for you to apply to stay in Canada. If somebody is in Canada for 6 or 7 years, they know Canada. Children are born in Canada. These people should have the right to apply from inside Canada. I had, and some of you have had seen stories, I had a story of a guy that got married to a woman. They had children, 2 Canadian born, the lady was in Canada as a refugee. She married a Canadian, 2 Canadian children, and on March 31st, they were deported. The women were deported. This is in the Chinese community. This is the undocumented people that we want to discuss. But you cannot, but also focus on C-50. Yes, ma'am.
Did you find any specific reason for the increase in the processing time? And also, how about the post-9/11 security check? Is it also a factor for the delay?
I heard the first question and didn't hear the second one. Sorry, can you repeat?
The second one, how about the post-9/11 security check? Because after the 9/11, in any sort of application, you have to go through to a very detailed security check. Is it also a factor for the delay in approval?
Very much so, but not so much. After the 9/11, there's not too much delay from certain parts of the world. There's delay from other parts of the world. And this is another large community that I have in my riding, the Tamil community. I am competing with the microphone. The Tamil community, this is the people from Sri Lanka, are experiencing a lot of delays, spousal applications under 2 years. Security report about enhanced security report about enhanced security report. that is a factor. In New Delhi, that is a factor. In Pakistan, that is a factor. In China, what we've noticed, and certainly there's a lot of people that applied out of China, China opened its borders for people to migrate in the early 90s. And a lot of people immigrated to come to Canada. The applications in China they hit the roof and they will keep on going. But the minister has announced special SWAT teams, if you want to call it, to go and clear the backlog. She had announced, and there was stuff in the Middle East, in Damascus. There's more people in Manila. Today I find out that she's sending more people to New Delhi. I still haven't heard a SWAT team going to Beijing in order to deal with the backlog. The backlog in Beijing is increasing. 48% in 2006, 19% whatever in 2007. That's, if you put them together, that's almost 60%. It's real shameful. Tomorrow the committee is traveling. There is a bill in front of the House, which is a motion of non-confidence. But you know what? I'm not going to say that, like I said in my statement, the immigration department needs overhaul. The immigration department needs to be looked upon. What we need to do is hold hearings on this piece of legislation. And it should be allowed for the hearings to take place.
Yes, but Ms. Olivia Chow, she actually sent a motion to against this amendment to the Act on April 3rd. Is there anything Liberal have been doing on...
There's 3 motions.
3 motions, okay.
I've got a motion, Mr. Shillette, states that we do nothing on IRPA, Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, until we have called in stakeholders, immigration consultants, immigration practitioners, lawyers, community groups, NGOs, people on the front line, people like CNC, people like CICS, people like Advanced Group. I'm talking locally here. These people have a stake to play. They have something to contribute. They have something to add. Is this working? Is this not working? What did we as Liberals do, right or wrong? What are the Conservatives are doing, right or wrong? I'm not saying anybody is perfect, but the perfect thing to do is for the Minister to say to the Citizenship and Immigration Committee, supposedly we're the experts of the House of Commons that sit in this committee, this is dysfunctional, hold hearings, come back to me with a report of what you want to do. Last year when we were dealing with lost Canadians, this is people that were born to Canadians abroad, and some of you carried that story about my daughter that was born to me abroad, and she could lose her citizenship. We hold hearings. We had a unanimous report. We gave it to the minister. The minister brought it forward. We automatically, although I had some difficulty with it, we adopted it. Why is the minister doing the same thing? Go to the people in the House of Commons that are experts from all parties on this, Standing Committee of Citizenship and Immigration, deal with it there, ask for a bill, see you've got 4 or 5 months to do this thing, bring it to me for us to move forward.
And excuse me, what is Mr. Marisa Levin's motion?
Mr. Marich's Bevilacqua motion is that we deal with absolutely no other bills after April the 28th but this bill. So he goes one step farther. I'm saying that we should look at it. He said that as soon as we come back, we only deal with this. So, I mean, the spirit, both the Conservatives and the Liberals, is the same thing. We want to look at this. We want to call people into to come into evidence. The only difference is that the Conservative motion has a deadline of 7th, and our motion says we got to deal with it thoroughly. The amendment to the motion, the motion that Olivia Chow has brought in, that just practically says we take C-50 and kill it. Now, that's one way of doing it, but on the other side is you got to realize that there's problems here. There's problems.
The amendment to Olivia's motion.
Sorry?
The voting tomorrow is about the
Olivia's motion, which says kill the bill.
Yeah.
I don't think that is responsible. I think what we need to do is for the minister to charge the Citizenship and Immigration Committee for us to hold hearings, for us to say how we fix the system. The system is not working. The system hasn't worked for a couple of years. However, what is happening is that when you decrease the numbers that you take in by 10% instead of increasing them, then you really get backlogs.
Why are they doing it?
I will read you, sir. You have to remember that west of Winnipeg, the ridings the Liberals hold are dominated by people that are either recent Asian immigrants or recent migrants from Eastern Canada. People who live in ghettos and are not integrated into Western Canadian society. That, to me, says it all. We've applied, we're in, close the doors, don't let anybody else in behind us. That is wrong. The minister can pick and choose who, from where, and when she wants to allow. Is this country becoming a little bit more multicultural that they want? Yes, it is. Is this country becoming more of non-Caucasians? Yes, it is.
What's the problem with that? What is the problem with what we got in Canada? We got the best country in the world. We got the best society in the world. And look at us, we all get together. On my street, where I live, and I live in my riding, I'm the only member of Parliament in Scarborough who lives in his riding. 2 members of Parliament live in my riding, and I welcome them. On my street, I have people from Serbia, I have people from Macedonia, I have people from Greece, I have people from Italy, I have people from mainland China, I got people from Hong Kong, I got people from India, I got people from Pakistan, I got people from the Middle East. That is my street, that is my Canada. Minister, why are you tinkering with my Canada? Why are you want to change what's the makeup of this country? Why don't you put more people into the posts that are bringing people into Canada to look after them? Let me give you some example, if I may, and I haven't got these figures here, but certainly I can share them with you. 50% of our immigration comes from China, Manila, Hong Kong, New Delhi, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Damascus. 50%. The processing time in those 5 posts has gone up by 10%. 10% overall. So those places that I've mentioned is not the people that are coming to Canada that are certainly, the older generation, the Caucasians. Those people are coming to Canada and they're from different parts of the world. Different sounding last names. Look at my last name, 11 letters. And yet I was elected in Canada. I wasn't born here. I was born abroad. What's wrong with that? This is what Canada is all about. Why is the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration want to fool around with my Canada, your Canada? I remember when we opened the doors to people from mainland China, and mainland China was allowed people to come in. I welcomed that. I worked with the students back in Tiananmen Square, and I said to China, what you're doing is wrong. China has since then changed its ways. China should take its place in the G8. And yet Canada is not welcoming them. The Prime Minister is not even going to China.
Okay, the next question.
We are going to be discussing what's happening in citizenship and immigration. Giving the Minister the power to choose when, where, and how, that is all the negative about it. And unfortunately, the fact that we need changes is overshadowed by the bad legislation that is brought forward. Now, the new legislation that's coming in is supposed to look after the backlog. So the backlog is 900,000 people. And the backlog has to be dealt with the old legislation. And the new legislation will bring fast-track in people. So the 900,000 people that have already applied, we will say to them, we'll allow you maybe, 100, 120, 130, for you to come in, and we're going to bring in 120,000 from the new people. Now, I don't know the numbers because the Minister hasn't said the numbers. So the old legislation of 120, 130 or 150, that whatever you got, that's even going to drag longer than 6 or 7 years. So what you're doing to the backlog, you're making the backlog longer, and you're saying to some of the people that we need in Canada, whoops, we're going to pull you in faster. This will not stand a court challenge. If the legal society were to take this piece of legislation to the Supreme Court of Canada under our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it will not hold the challenge. Now, let me also tell you, in 2000, under the Liberals, we raised the points. Remember when we raised the points? From 70 to 80? I said it was nuts. A lot of Liberal backbenchers screamed. It went to court. It did not stand the challenge. Standing Committee of Citizenship and Immigration.
So what kind of policies will the Liberal deploy to achieve that?
Well, both the parliamentary secretary, the minister, and our party have called for, and there's a consensus that we need to bring into the Standing Committee of Citizenship and Immigration. I'm calling on the minister to immediately pull the bill out of the motion of confidence and the budget, and allow the Citizenship and Immigration Committee to work on it and come back to her with a unanimous bill or a majority bill for her to move forward. Putting it into the budget bill is certainly not right. It's like putting a gun to your head and say, hey, you don't like it? Pull the trigger. If we go to an election over C-50, I'll tell you, my majorities in the last election were 62%. If we go to an election today, I'd probably get 80%. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking to get re-elected. I'm looking to be able to service. The Liberal Party is looking to be able to service the communities that will make Canada, the communities that we want to invite to Canada, the people from all the corners of the world, not just one particular corner, all the four corners of the world, to come to Canada to make this country what it is. A country of immigrants, a country of French francophones, a country of anglophones, the founding nations, and a country of the first people of Canada, the Aboriginal people. 4 pillars to hold the stable that's called Canada together. Unfortunately, that is not the way that the Conservatives want to go.
Do you have the time to achieve that?
Well, let it come to the Citizenship and Immigration Committee, and let the minister have the fortitude and the gall and the guts, if I can use those words, to say, okay, let the Citizenship and Immigration Committee look at it. That's what it's needed. Grandstanding and say, we're going to defeat the government and we're going to pull this bill. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not the way to go. We have problems, and we're going to work to solve those problems. And for there's some people that say, well, if you got enough backbone, liberals defeat it. Well, if we defeat it, we do not service our communities. If we defeat it, by the time the new government comes back in 6 or 7 months, the timelines will get longer. We need to work on this bill. This is what the Canadian people want, and we got to work on it. That May 7th, and my bill, or Mr. Bevilacqua's bill, that is more, like our motions, will probably be adopted, and we're looking forward to working with stakeholders and to listen to people for us to make sure that we bring forth a bill that can be welcomed and will service Canada. Nothing is perfect right now, folks, but we have an opportunity to work on it. We have an opportunity in a minority government to push the right buttons, to ask the right questions, to get the right stakeholders in order for us to be able to work on this.
How many Liberal entities in the Standing Committee of the...
4, 2 Bloc, and Olivia Chow, 7 from the NDP. The Conservatives have 5. So there's going to be a battle. And certainly you will be kept abreast of that battle, but there's going to be a definite battle.
首先呢，我要说明立场，我是政治中立的，我没有偏帮任何政党。但是呢，今天我是从2个身份来看这个 C50后法案。第一个身份是我从是营商学者的位角。我们营商学者一直对生意们都很关注，很希望帮助生意们，特别有些从事小营生意的商人。移民是一个经济动力，没有移民，经济没有动力。因为你看看现在很多，为什么房市这么好？这个房地产这么好？部分原因是因为生意们过来买房子，所以生意们。特别是中国人生意们来说，对于经济方面的影响或者帮助贡献很大的。因为我不是歧视其他国家移民，但是从我经验来说，我觉得中国来的移民，他经济实力相对来说比较强。多数来说，很多时候生意们过来，他很快就买房子。相对来说，我发现其他国家人过来不是立即买房子，可能他待几年了，或者是慢点，所以。生意们对经济方面是有一定的贡献，所以如果C50法案实施之后呢，我觉得是影响比较大，是中国来的移民，因为你看这个C50法案内容是有部分是移民报警有权利选择哪类型的移民，肯定他不会把投资移民砍掉，因为投资移民给政府嘛，他肯定不会啊。最大影响是什么移民呢？是团聚父母团聚的移民，因为我听说他们听说这些移民是对政府没有好处的，因为他觉得政府觉得移民局觉得这些人来拿这个医疗保险啊，过待几年之后他拿这个老人金啊、老人房子啊，所以最大可能性，如果他移民报警有权利去选择这个移民，肯定团聚移民是最好选择，或者是可能会取消这个类别。但是我们中国人来说，都是传统来说都是父母家庭团聚，我们希望申请兄弟姐妹过来啊，申请爸爸妈妈过来啊。所以呢，我觉得这个以后通过来说呢，是对于中国人特别父母团聚的移民影响最大。另外呢，从我是专业移民顾问的位讲，是从这个法案来看，我觉得这法案有很多不公平的地方。因为这法案精神来说，原来是解决积压的个案 ，key the backlog， 原来就是想法是一样。但是我们看以前曾经好几年前，移民报是想去解决这个积压个案，它是怎么去处理？是原来把分数抬高了，原来是67分 抬高到75分到80分左右。当然你看后果怎么样都没有改决，反而现在羁押官越来越厉害。所以我觉得这个方案来说，不是改这个羁押官的好方法。我觉得怎么去解决这个羁押官？第一是加派人手，增加资源。比如说你看北京的羁押这么厉害香港都有挺严重的，为什么移民部不可以加派移民官，请更多人手去处理？第二，怎么解决这个羁押官来说是从我这个角度来看是性别法的 process 简化的这个申请。打比方说，它可以抽查，但是一般来说，申请的表格或者申请这个文件，尽可能简化这个程序当然，这个保安这个 security check 是一个蛮实一个是对炸弹很重要的，当然这个不能马虎，不能讲这样，但是其他方面可以简化的。第三，移民部可以刚才跟 Jim 说这个派一个 SWAT team， 这个特别处理小组去处理这个案，因为呢，我记得前2年3年呢，Quebec 这个 Immigration Department 就魁北克省的移民局，他在香港有一些投资移民对羁押他很厉害的，他特意从Montreal 派一个专门派过官员去帮这些香港移民官去解决这羁押官，很快呢，他这个申请呢就恢复正常了。咁所以政府可以考虑当时剛才 Jim 說，有 SWAT team 到其他地方但沒有去香港。Jim just mentioned that there's a SWAT team to other places, but not Hong Kong and China.
There's nothing that I've known about Hong Kong or China. That they should go there, but they don't.
Just mentioned that this sense SWAT team. So 所以我覺得這個可以考慮是派一個 SWAT team 去解決問題。另外呢，最大問題的是，他這個法案可引起一個 confusion， 一個混亂。什麼混亂呢？是因為他這法案說，據我了解是他說移民局可以不收有些已經申請的個案，比如說你申請了，他覺得是就算移民官通過了，他可以退回這申請。咁這是很混亂，因為如果他這樣做的時候，申請人不知道他花幾年時間申請個案，將來會不會有一天移民局說對不起，我們在這類型的申請你們不通過了。另外最大問題是這個信息問題 impression 問題，因為整個法案給一個信息是說移民部或者加拿大政府不歡迎從亞洲或者其他地方來的移民，這個是最糟糕的地方，因為這個信息給有些人感覺是不太良好的。現在剛才 Jim 講過是，現在申請移民的申請從中國跟香港的話已經下降了，就 drop 的。為什麼？因為現在申請時間太長，另外有些人感覺加拿大不是歡迎新移民的國家，所以很多人已經放棄申請了。所以我們會發現將來從中國大陸過來或香港過來、亞洲過來的人，他慢慢會小多，因為最近有調查，你知道，現在亞洲來的東南來的人比中國人都多。我如果這個法案通過之後呢，我會覺得這個印象會更厲害。當然我不是說一定要申請完過來，我沒有說我們一定要中國人過來什麼情況。但是中國人來說是對加拿大有貢獻的民族，我們從經濟方面和其他地方都是對加拿大貢獻的。我們另外我們在一個是我們都是奉公守法的公民，我們都是對治安方面都沒有構成什麼影響。咁所以我覺得這個法案來說是另外呢，是我們研商學社是都是很推動一生一次擔保，我們都以前好幾年都是說希望能夠一生人有機會擔保一個親人過來，因為我們發現很多人因為年紀問題、學歷問題不能過來團聚，咁所以我一直都希望政府能夠給一生之中有人來擔保，所以這個法案跟我們這個一生一次擔保精神是違反的。咁所以我是照着兩方面來看這法案：一，公平性；另外最重要是能不能夠解決這積壓問題，因為它法案精神是解決積壓問題。第三，對我們華人的影響是怎麼樣？咁所以我覺得是照着這幾方面，我們發表 我个人意见。当然我没有政治立场，我不是什么党什么党，我是中进中立的，我是对事情来评论。
就刚才您说那个一个移民一生有一次机会担保，这个现在处于什么状态？是一个高层还是只是一个想法
？Okay, I just said that remember like way back a couple years ago. We have idea of a sponsorship family member once a lifetime.
Oh, once in a lifetime.
What's the status?
It died. It died, and I'll tell you why. In order to have an individual to sponsor a member of the family once in a lifetime, you have to get agreement from all the provinces, the province where people are going to, and unfortunately agreement was not forthcoming. So, you know what? On C-50, needs to fly first class. Another $3,000 to $4,000, 15. They need to stay in a hotel. Think about it. Where would you stay in Beijing? No hotel is under $150. That's another $1,000. So you're spending something like $25,000 to $30,000 for one immigration officer to go there for 6 weeks to work. What we need, if we're going to be true to ourselves, is say, okay, are we going to bring more people in? Fine, let's do that. And if we're going to be sending people over there, we need more immigration officers that are there on a permanent basis to look after the areas that are bringing in more immigrants. You just don't, if you don't have enough immigration officers to look after the cases, then automatically what you're doing is you're putting a quota system in place. And that's what exists right now, a discriminatory quota system.
Yeah, I have one more question. For those like 500,000 applicants who are still waiting for their case to be processed, do they have any way to, do they have any idea to know the changes of the Immigration Act, or can they
It won't affect them. It won't affect them. Everybody that's applying after February 25th, 08, that will affect them. The way that it will affect the people in the backlog is that they're going to be competing in order to come with the applications that will be fast tracking. So if we're not going to increase the numbers from 250,000, and we've seen a drop in the last 2 years, then you're going to be competing for people that want to fast track and people that are already in the system. And at some point in time when we conclude this, I also want to talk about what is happening right now about the Olympics, if you'll allow me to.
The other question regarding the immigration issue, if not, Jim will talk about something about his stand on the Olympics issue.
Okay.
Okay.
As somebody that was born in Greece, where the Olympics were first held, the Olympics were held in the spirit of bringing people together, people to discuss ideas, people to put away their differences. When the Olympics were held, the state cities of Greece did not fight anymore. There was no war, and it was something to bring good spirit and to bring people together and celebrate the athletes. And these Olympics have been going on for many, many years, since 1896. I was in Greece in the 2004 when the Olympics were held. I seen the lowering of the flag by the mayor of Athens, passing it on to the mayor of Beijing. I was very proud. I was very proud for three things. One, I was very proud because I, a Greek-born, was able to go back to Greece to see the Olympics. I was proud because I seen a large Canadian team coming in, and I was proud to know that a lot of my constituents will feel the same pride as I do because the Olympics in 2008 will be held in Beijing. There's some countries that are saying we should boycott the Olympics. That is certainly not in the spirit of the Olympics, of bringing people together and hosting ideas and putting away our differences. And what is happening in the torch relay is something that is certainly, I don't think is proper. I don't think is welcomed. I seen a torchbearer that was was in a wheelchair, and people try to attack that torchbearer. Listen, if you have problems with the state of China, you take it at the appropriate places. You take it to the United Nations Human Rights Commissioner. You take it to the UN. If you got problems with China, you take it to the appropriate place. Attacking the torchbearers, blocking the spirit of Olympics. It is not the place you do it. You want to demonstrate? Demonstrate aside. Do not attack the torchbearer. Do not go and grab the torch from the torchbearer. Do not go with a fire hose to put the torch out. That is not the spirit of the Olympics. And I stand with you, shoulder to shoulder, to tell you and to wish you that 2008 is probably one of the best Olympics that there is. The last time I believe that Olympics were held in Asia was in 1960s in Japan. So, okay, there you go. There you go. Before that, it's been 20 years. I think the Olympics should be held in China. The countries that are talking about boycotting them, they should think about it twice, because in the spirit of the Olympics, that's the only time. And I say that wholeheartedly. The old spirit of ancient Olympics should come back. We should put aside our storage. We should put aside our differences and celebrate our athletes. And if people want to demonstrate, and if people have a bone to pick with China, take it to the appropriate place. Do not attack the torchbearers. Do not. If you want to demonstrate, demonstrate. But do not attack the torchbearers or try to push them aside.
Are you speaking on behalf of the party?
I'm speaking on behalf of myself, sir. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. There were two members of parliament that were born in Greece. Three actually. I mean, Tony Clement was also of Hellene parents, born from Cyprus. But in Greece, there was two members of parliament in the House of Commons that were born in Greece. I have a large Chinese population, Hong Kong population, and on their behalf, I'm voicing the concern that they want to see the Olympics held in China. People have problems. They should take it to the appropriate place. Thank you.